Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 191. I'm like a tree. I give a certain kind of fruit, and if you don't like that fruit, F off. Guillermo del Toro.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Indie Film Hustle's Filmmaker Process. We provide filmmakers with professional services to get their films or series funded, finished, and distributed. Some of the services we offer are pitch deck creation, film budgets and schedules, domestic and international sales estimates, legal contract templates, consulting, post-production services, script coverage, professional trailer editing, poster design, film deliverables, and production payroll. To learn more, go to www.filmmakerprocess.com. Now, today's show is sponsored by TaylorSound.com. One of the most complicated problems I've had in my professional career is sound, and sound mixing, sound design is generally always very expensive. But Taylor Sound has come onto the scene and has done something pretty incredible. Like so many other things you have in the world today, now you can get your sound design online. They're offering flat promotional rates for commercials, music videos, short films, and any other video content that's short form. They're very affordable, and because you are an Indie Film Hustle Tribe member, we'll get 15% off your order. Just type in the word hustle in the post your brief section. That's TAILOR sound.com. So today we got a really special episode, guys. This is a Halloween episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, and I have Eduardo Sanchez, who is one of the co-directors of now legendary independent film, The Blair Witch Project. And for those who are listening who did not or were not around or weren't of age yet when The Blair Witch hit back in '99, it was a phenomenon. It was something that took Hollywood by storm, and it was two young independent filmmakers from Central Florida with no connections in the business, with no stars attached, and in a new way, this new thing called found footage, which we now look at as a just another subgenre of horror. But it was kind of revolutionary when Eduardo did it back with Blair Witch. It had never been done before, and he was able to create a movie for I think around $27,000, which was basically family, friends, and credit cards. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching now, even because it still scares the hell out of people, believe it or not. And I can't express to you what kind of craziness the Blair Witch Project was when it got released. I mean, they were on the cover of Time magazine, two independent filmmakers with no other movie, their first film out the gate. They were on the cover of Time. They really took over Hollywood, and the movie was, at the time, the most successful independent movie of all time, grossing $200 or $300 million back in 1999 off of a budget of $27,000. It was really incredible what Eduardo and his partner did back then, and I've been wanting to get Eduardo on the show for a long time because I wanted to really dig into, like, what is that experience like? I mean, you're a fish in a fishbowl, and the whole world is looking at you. And he was so young, and he was thrown around Hollywood. He met everybody. Everybody wanted to meet him. Everybody wanted to work with him. It's just an incredible story, and then how his career has progressed over the years since that time. And I also wanted to talk to him about the marketing of that film, which is arguably one of the best marketed independent films of all time. What they were able to do with the fake documentary. People didn't know if the Blair Witch was a real story, a fake story. It just caught everybody in the world's attention because of the way they marketed the film, the way they thought about marketing. It is a film and a marketing campaign that I've studied many times over the course of my career, and I'm super excited to bring you guys my conversation with Eduardo Sanchez. I'd like to welcome to the show Eduardo Sanchez. Thanks so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's an absolute thrill to speak to another Cubano director doing stuff in
That's
the business,
right.
man.
That's right. There aren't too many of us.
We're like unicorns. When I was just talking to you about Joe Menendez, who was on the show a while ago, I'm like, oh, so you're the other Cuban director.
Yeah, I'm that other one. I'm the taller one.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, I wanted to get started, man. What made you want to start making movies in the first place?
I mean, it really, I've always had an interest in films. Like my dad, I was born in Cuba too, but when we came here to this country, he never learned English. So, and he loved going to the movies. So he would take me to these movies. And sometimes I would help translate. Mm-hmm. But just his kind of, love for the movies and just the excitement of going with him and all that stuff. And then, we would watch movies. He used to love James Bond movies. Mm-hmm. Just watching those, some of the best childhood memories I have. And I guess my dad's enthusiasm really, made me aware of it at least. And then I guess when Star Wars came out, I was like eight years old.
Yeah.
And, it was like this all encompassing kind of thing that, not only was it a great movie and, it was, the toys and all the, stuff about space and, it just blew my mind, and it kind of opened up, the idea of like, wow, these people actually make movies. And it got me really interested in, at least in how they made movies, especially special effects. I read every article I could find about special effects and, mm-hmm. Just behind the scenes stuff. I love to see behind the scenes. So, there was definitely, this, huge interest from me as far as like just trying to figure out how they made films and not really. I mean, I grew up in a suburb of DC in Tacoma Park, which is, about the furthest place away from the film business. And so to me, it wasn't really this kind of, I was too young to realize that it could be a career, Right. But for me, it was just like this hobby, like this thing that I was really interested in. And then later on, in high school, that I kind of make the change of like, well, hey, I can actually, make a living, doing some of this stuff, so, but yeah, man, it was at a pretty young age that I kind of, definitely connected with cinema.
In the 90s, there wasn't, for a lot of people listening, they don't understand. Like in the 90s, it wasn't cool to be the director yet. Like the rock and roll star director, kind of like the Tarantinos and the Robert Rodriguez's of the world, had just started coming up, but there was still not a lot of information about filmmaking.
Oh, yeah, no, there was really nothing. There was nothing. I mean, and also, back in those days, to make a movie, there was no video.
No.
I mean, video was just for news and for TV and for soap operas. So
right.
No respectable filmmaker would have made films on video. So that meant that you had to at least go to 16 millimeter,
right? Which was expensive as all hell.
Which was super expensive. So it really was. There really was this like kind of financial gatekeeper, mm-hmm. Keeping people from making, these films. I mean, it didn't stop me. I made a movie, a feature when I was like 19 years old on VHS.
Nice. What was the name of it?
It was called Video All.
Okay.
And it was just like just kind of like a PG-13, guys get into kind of trouble that they can't handle. These kind of college age guys get into trouble that they can't handle, and
right.
It was kind of funny, and it had some cool action sequences. I put all my friends in. I put my mom in it.
But you shot it on VHS, man.
We shot it on VHS, man. It was an exercise. It was like, can we shoot a feature? Can we do a feature? And so it's a fun film. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but it was, and you know how it is, man. It's like it's a huge learning experience.
Oh God,
just to get through it, just to be able to and then you realize how much work a feature is. I mean, it's an amazing amount of work, and so luckily it didn't scare me away. from filmmaking. But yeah, man, it's definitely, you're right. There wasn't anything. I mean, like Spike Lee.
Yeah. She's got to have
Spike
it.
Lee, she's got to have it, and then Robert came after that, and then
Reservoir,
Steven Soderbergh, and then
Slacker.
Kevin Smith.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. But that was that whole generation of like when indie film became like indie film. There was really not a lot of indie film. I get farthest back I can go is Hollywood Shuffle. He made it all with his credit cards.
Yeah. Well, there was.
I mean, there was always independent film, but like the independent film as we know it today.
Yeah. No, there wasn't anything where like people were like going out and like mortgaging their homes to make films. How foolish. And Sundance wasn't Sundance yet.
No,
it wasn't the festival.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape was what put it on the map. I think.
Yeah,
that was the first year I heard about it. Was with '89.
Yeah, that's the first. Yeah, that's the first time, and then soon thereafter, Clerks, and She's Got to Have It. I guess went through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was. So I mean, me as a kid, I didn't have. I knew Spielberg and George Lucas, but to me, those guys were gods. There was nobody like, Scorsese. Well, as a young age, I as a little kid, Spielberg and Lucas were like the ones that I recognized. You know what I mean? Those were the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, Scorsese, and you get into all, and then I got into Spike Lee in a major way.
Oh God, Do the Right Thing.
Do the right thing. It's just
it's a masterpiece. It's a
masterpiece. I was talking to somebody else about it on the other day about it. Like, just I haven't seen it in a long time, and I've been kind of saving it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna check it out again soon. But yeah, it's just one of those movies that it changed the way. For I was like, I guess I don't know, 19 or 20 or something when it came out. So just for somebody who had been raised on the 80s, Spielberg and George Lucas and Joe Dante and the Spielberg kind of wave that
Zemeckis, right?
Zemeckis, and really, really great films. But and also as a teenager, the last thing you want to do is watch a movie that has any kind of social commentary or whatever,
right?
Or blatant social commentary. Then, so I went to see Do the Right Thing, and I came out, and I was just like, I was kind of angry and just confused, and I kept thinking about the movie, and I was actually kind of angry at like Spike Lee and this, and and it really challenged everything that had gone into my film education up until then.
Oh yeah.
But then then I embraced it, and I just fell in love with it, man. And I just and I really aspired to be kind of a Spike Lee kind of filmmaker. But
we all do, man. We all want to be. We all want to be Spielberg. We all want to be.
You go through these little phases where you're like, I want to be this, I want to be that person, whatever. Right. But you hopefully slowly, find your own voice,
Now you went to UCF, which was literally down the street from my college, and I think we were you in Orlando in the mid 90s?
I was in Orlando like early 90s, and then I moved back to Orlando in early 98.
Okay, so we just missed each other. I graduated in 96 from Full Sail.
Right. Yeah. We just missed each other, man. You left right before I came back.
Yeah, it was Orlando was an interesting time around around those years because it was going to be the next Hollywood, if you remember correctly, with Universal, and everybody was like, "You got to stay, man. Don't go down to Miami. Hollywood's over, man. Orlando's where it's at."
Yeah. No, man. I fell for that too, man. I found UCF somewhere. I don't know where the hell I found UCF in high school or something. And for some reason, I liked the school. And then when it finally came time to go to, from my community college I wanted to go to film school.
Mm-hmm.
UCF was offering this program, and I loved the amount of equipment they had, and I liked their the way they had figured out how they were going to do the classes, and I just liked, all about it. And I got into the film school. And yeah, and part of it was like, oh man, Orlando's going to be the next, Hollywood East.
Yeah, it's all got Hollywood East. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, man. So in my brain, I thought I was going to be like, interning on movie sets and shit. You know what I mean? And lo and behold, we're like, oh, where the hell are the movies and where are the sets and this and that, it never happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was there. When I was there, I was interning on some TV shows at Universal. I did get that much,
which is great,
which was amazing. But everybody was like, "Oh, it's the next big thing." And I worked at Nickelodeon too for a little while.
Yeah, Nickelodeon, and then and then Disney. Like we had a directing class. I think at Disney.
At MGM, yeah, at the MGM. Yeah, it was MGM back then, yeah.
Yeah, Disney, yeah, exactly, Disney MGM. And, but that's about as close as we got. And, and they did let us, like both, I guess Universal and I think Disney too, they let us shoot.
Yeah, in the back lot.
On the back lots and stuff. So, it was cool having that, there. But, the thing is that, those parks are, they're amusement parks. And they were never... Yeah, and they were studios, very much down on the list. So
they make more money. They make more money selling popcorn and T-shirts than they will making a movie.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a cool time, man. You're right. It was a really exciting time because there was this. Supposedly, we were going to be like on the
cutting edge,
the cutting edge of this new wave.
Oh God. It gives me chills in the back of my head just even thinking about all of that. I fell for that trap for about a year and a half. After that, I was like, I'm out of here. I got to go back down to Miami and get some work.
Yeah. I mean, I finished film school and then I headed back and that's around the time that we started thinking about doing Blair Witch and stuff. Right. But yeah, man, it was.
So how did you come up with the idea for Blair Witch, man?
It came from like, Dan Myrick and me, we came up with the idea together and we went to UCF together and, we had just, I don't know, a couple of weeks before we had just seen like I don't remember, I never remember the damn name of the movie, but it was like it was the Nightmare on Elm Street movie with, Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold in it.
Oh God, what the hell was that movie? Oh Jesus! I forgot that one. Is it She-Devil?
No. It was a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It was like Freddy's Dead or Freddy Returns. Okay. I'm serious, dude. So, and I love the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And I was like, wow, man. What's the hell's happened to like legitimately scary horror movies, and right. Dan and I started talking about what scared us as kids, and we rented a bunch of VHS movies of and programs that kind of scared us as kids, and we were just kind of going back and seeing does any of this stuff still scare us, mm-hmm. And we kind of honed in on a particular genre, the kind of pseudo documentary genre where like the show In Search Of, that TV show In Search mm-hmm. Of, which was that was their sweet spot, and a lot of movies like Legend of Boggy Creek, which was kind mm-hmm. of pseudo documentary reenactments, like it was, and those movies and that TV program, just really scared the crap out of us when we were kids, and we watched them again. And they still kind of scared the crap out of us, man. Just, there's something about the idea of it being real.
Right.
So Dan and I started talking about, could you do something, this was early 90s, mm-hmm. We were at UCF, and could you do something that, could you update that, could you do a fake, a documentary and we were thinking like, could you release it as being real, or could you at least fool people, or at least people would go into the movie theater thinking that it's, or at least pretending that it's real, right. Just that, it wasn't about like scamming people or anything, but it's just the idea. So that was the idea. And the initial idea was just like, these filmmakers go out, into some wooded area because that's the cheapest place to shoot horror movies.
Of course.
And
no permits.
Yeah, exactly. And there's that these filmmakers are, are following up on, and then they disappear, and then their footage is found, years later.
The concept is brilliant, man.
Yeah, that was just kind of the initial thing, and we walked away from it for a few years. We had other things to, Dan and I were finishing up school, and we had our own films that we were doing and all this stuff, and then we circled back on it a few years after film school and decided to do it again.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. How did you get the money for Blair Witch?
It was a lot of like kind of credit card stuff.
Because it was like what, $27,000, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was like I don't know for sure, but somewhere around the 20,000, 25,000 for the initial, but was the initial budget.
And did you shoot it? And you shot it all video?
We shot it high 8 and we shot it 16 millimeter, mostly high 8.
Right. And did you cut it nonlinear or did you do flatbed?
We cut it on a Media 100.
Oh God, Media 100. Ouch.
Yeah. We cut it. We started cutting it on Avid.
It's too expensive.
And then it was too expensive. So we switched over to Media 100. Yeah. And then it
did its job.
It did its job, man.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you just kind of grab a bunch of money together, and then once you got the credit cards and all that, because I'm assuming you pitched this to some people and they said they were to give you money, but of course it never showed up.
Yeah. We did this investment, reel, like this little video that was like 10 minutes and kind of explained, and it was really well done, really creepy, and set up the story, and we were like, oh my God, people are going to start giving us money, and you know how it is. Nobody. I mean, it's just really weird, man. And I offered it to people that I know had money, like I knew I'm like, dude, you got, and unfortunately nobody really bid.
Or fortunately for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then we just kind of we lucked out and got the attention of John Pearson.
Yeah,
and
John's amazing.
He helped us. Yeah, and he helped us with his show, Split Screen. He helped us get the rest of the money for the budget. And then we shot it. We shot it in 10 days, 10 or 12 days, and then edited it for about a year.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And so now you've got a final product. You've got this little movie that you have in your wildest dreams thinks anything major is going to happen with. If I'm correct, right? You just kind of made a movie. You're like, what were you expecting?
Yeah,
what were you expecting?
Yeah. I mean, look, it was we expected as much from this movie as we expected from the other movies we had made and failed.
Sure.
I mean, when you make, that's the whole thing with people are like, oh, these movies, this movie sucks, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but that movie that sucks, most of the people involved in that movie probably thought that they were making a really great film. Like, there's very few people out there that I know that are like making movies for money. You know what I mean? Like, for us, it was just like every other independent film. Like, oh, this is going to be the one, and whatever. And anyway, we knew we had a good idea. We knew that like people were definitely very interested in it when we pitched them, and kind of, you could tell they were, so there was enthusiasm there, but we had no idea we had no idea. Even when we finished the movie and brought it, back to Orlando and started watching the footage, we were like,
really?
I'm not sure what the hell we have here. I mean, I remember talking to Dan or somebody, like, walking back from one of the, because we shot like for 10 days continuously. Like the actors were out there the whole time. They slept out there. We brought them food. We brought them fresh batteries. We brought them tapes. Whatever the hell they needed to really like keep them lost in those woods. And I remember one time coming back like at 3 a.m. after doing something with the actors, dropping something off or scaring them or whatever, or I don't know. And I was like, we were either like creating like a really like scary and cool film, or it's going to be like the stupidest comedy on like, it was just going to be like a joke. Like these people thought that giving cameras to the actors was a good idea. You know what I mean? Like it just had disaster written all over it.
Yeah, it doesn't read well on a pitch.
No, it does not. It does not. You know, and that's the funny thing, man. Like when we finally got our agents, you know, after the movie came out, our agents were, or you know, right before Sundance, we got our agents, and our agents. I was like, you know, we were talking about how the movie was really hard to, you know, get off the ground and this and that, and you know, one of them was like, "Oh, I would have looked at it." I'm like, dude, seriously, you would have taken a pitch from a complete unknown about a movie where the actors go out into the woods and shoot their movie on high 8. You would have forwarded that to all the studios, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
It was a totally like, oh, it was kind of the reaction like, oh, it's a cool idea. I'm not sure how the hell you're gonna pull it off, but it's a cool idea. So, and you know, and luckily we. You know, all the pieces fell into place, and we came out with something good.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the process of actually making it? Because I know a lot of people talk about, you know, the success and all this kind of stuff, but what was the actual directorial process in your heads? Like, did you give the cameras to the actors? You put them out there in the forest. Did you guys pretend to be like the witch or leave things for them? Like, did they not? Was it like completely like they had no idea what was happening?
Yeah, I mean, we tried to keep them, you know, as out of the loop as possible. Like we tried to keep like any kind of contact with them at a very, very minimal level. We would like if there was a problem, you know, they could address it, but it wasn't something where we brought them out of the woods unless they got hurt. You know, there was always a plan for if anybody got hurt, how we would address that. But it was mostly just keeping them isolated. So like whenever anybody had any kind of duty that you know brought them close to the actors, the number one rule was don't talk to the actors unless you absolutely have to. Like if they try to talk to you, just say, "I can't talk to you, man," you know? And so our thing was just basically, you know, set up the whole, you know, because it was like a 24-hour play, you know, like a 24-hour play. So our whole thing as the filmmakers and as the directors was basically just build this world around the three actors, you know, and try to make it as convincing as possible and try to make it as isolating as possible. So we would give them, you know, we knew the story and we knew where it was going to end, but they didn't know, you know, besides what they kind of learned or kind of, you know, took out of like the auditions, because we auditioned, you know, with a couple of scenes that, you know, were similar from the movie. So they kind of had some clues as far as what was going to happen. But they didn't know, you know, who was going to die and, you know, what was, you know, they just didn't know. It was just basically, you know, minute by minute kind of, you know, information only given on a need to know basis, you know?
Right. And the energy, you could see the energy in the actors. Like it's something you can't recreate. You can't act that.
No, and that's the whole thing is like our whole thing was like, if we cast the right people, which, you know, we spent a lot of time casting the right people, and we give, you know, and we do our job enough of like actually building this world around them and kind of, you know, and keeping them off balance, you know, we realize, okay, they're going to be able to they're going to go to places where most actors can't go, you know, you just can't, you know, be where you're, you know, in that mentality of like Mike Williams said, you know, like he goes, you can't like recreate the idea of like, you know, of you as an actor waking up to little kids playing outside your tent in the middle of the night in the middle of the woods when you're lost. You know what I mean? Like you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't direct that. You can't prepare for that.
That's not something they teach you in acting class.
No. So, you know, and, you know, and the actors were really, I mean, you know, everybody, they knew what they had gotten themselves into. And that's what I think, you know, why I think the actors, even though, you know, they got, you know, you know, they didn't really get enough credit, man. I mean, definitely, it was the Blair Witch was definitely like a team effort. But the actors, I think, took the idea of like, you know, which was kind of a risky thing, like an improv movie where you don't know, you know, you're making up the lines as you go and you don't even know where the hell the story is. You know, you don't know where it's going. You know, you're getting these little directing notes, you know, 2 or 3, you know, 4 or 5 times a day. But other than that, you know, you can't ask the director you can't, you know, you can't get any clarification. You just got to make up, you got to read the notes and try to figure it out and try to, make it happen for yourself. And I think that is what really kind of created this, pretty incredible opportunity. And they knew they were, they were really like courageous, and they knew that they were doing something special. And I think that's what kind of, got them through the, all the hardships of just having to, sleep in the woods for so long. And,
jeez, 10 days in the woods.
Yeah. And not bathe and, not, I'm saying, like all this, all the stuff that happens when you're, out in the woods. So
we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
But after a while, man, you could definitely tell that, it was a lot easier for them to go into different places, into these far kind of, reaching places that other actors would have to really kind of, it would be tough for them to get to,
So it's almost like a Daniel Day-Lewis style acting role, because they completely engulfed themselves into it. And then you as a director were almost like Kubrick, where you wore down the actor to the point where they stopped acting because they were there.
Yeah,
kind of, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I mean, Dan and I were never,
abusive, of course. Yeah.
No, we were never abusive, and also we didn't. Kubrick, worked on a different level.
Yeah, of course.
For us, it was just, but yeah, we never really tied it to that kind of thing. But for us, it was just like, how do you make this look like it's completely real? Because that was our big thing. Like, we want this footage to look like it's 100% authentic. And so for us, it was just, keeping it safe for the actors, but also, pushing them to the very limits of what, would be considered safe.
Right. Reasonably.
Reasonably to take them to a place. They were never in danger. There was,
sure.
There was always, somebody, within, a hike away from, or, there was always, we were always in contact with them.
Mm-hmm. Were you watching them, or were you just?
Well, we tried watching them, but it kind of, you couldn't hear them anyway. Like,
mm-hmm.
the sound doesn't really travel
mm-hmm.
too far in the woods. So we like Dan tagged them for like I think the first couple of days, and then we kind of, there were so many other things that you had to get ready, and
mm-hmm.
we couldn't have a director out there, kind of. Following them the whole time. And then our whole thing was like, even if they do something wrong, what are you going to do? Like, go and correct it? Like, you can't, this is not that kind of movie. You know what I mean? Like, you got to hope that they're going to bring you stuff that's a lot, that encompasses a lot more than the notes you're giving them. You know what I mean? Like, so for us, it was more like, the observing kind of, fell, very quickly out of favor.
It's a very ballsy, it's a very ballsy move as a creative, as a director to do this, like, regardless of the success and all this stuff, but just as a filmmaker, like you've let go of a lot of things that directors generally hold on to, like complete control of the image, complete control of the actors. You guys kind of did this experiment. Blair Witch was almost an experimental film, very much so, because there was nothing at all like it out there.
Yeah.
It was,
and we definitely, knew that it was an experimental film, and that's kind of why, we just had this kind of obsession with, nothing in the movie being able to give you a clue that it wasn't real. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Our whole thing
was succeeded.
Like, yeah. So anything that kind of, lighting nighttime, with a 12K up on a hill,
mm-hmm.
that, soundtrack music,
mm-hmm.
Name actors, any of that, everything was basically, just making the most authentic thing possible. But yeah, it was very much an experiment. We had no idea, what we were going to come out with. I mean, we thought we were going to have some interesting, footage,
right.
But we had no idea we were going to be able to, we were going to have this, feature film that, kind of, blew everybody, that did what it did,
Now, I want to go into the marketing of this film, because it was, I anytime I ever did any lectures or I spoke of anything, or I did any posts about marketing, I always use Blair Witch as an example, because it's honestly and I've said this many times, it's honestly probably one of the best marketed independent films of all time, because of this insanely genius guerrilla marketing campaign that you guys did. Can you talk about how that came about? Because that you were thinking about the marketing of this film while making it, and filmmakers generally don't do that. So how did that come about? Who came up with it? Who fed the beast? How did that work?
It was, I'm not sure how, I mean, look, as an indie filmmaker, you're always thinking, at least if you're smart, you're always thinking about, how the hell am I going to sell this film? You know what I'm saying? So there's always a little bit of kind of, even just choosing the material, sometimes you immediately start looking for things that'll set you apart from, the rest of the herd, but for Blair Witch, it came about as a, very much a, just very much a pragmatic approach to the marketing. Like we had, we were editing the film. We were shooting some other stuff because we were shooting some stuff that we were going to add later on to the film that ended up on the cutting room floor. So we were busy. We were doing stuff, and we showed we had a segment on a show called Split Screen, which I mentioned earlier, the John Pearson show that played on Bravo, and his discussion board on his site, and this is obviously before YouTube, before Facebook. His discussion board kind of blew up. Like there was a lot of attention about Blair Witch, about this segment. Like, is it real? And this, or whatever. And people were like already throwing theories around. And for us as like filmmakers who had never experienced anything like that, it was just really exciting. We were like, holy shit, there's people talking about our movie, other than our friends and our parents.
Right.
So we we were like, we had no money, so we were to do a website. And luckily I had, some web building experience from a previous job. And so I just took it upon myself to build this website. And, and everybody helped, but I was the only one of the main guys that didn't have a girlfriend at the time. Right. So I sank I had a lot more time than they did. So I would edit late night, into the early morning, and then I would go home, and I would come home, and while Dan edited, I would just work on the website, and and it was very much like we it was great because we immediately had fans because we immediately linked to the split screen discussion boards, and a lot of those people came over to the site, and it really became this like very for me especially, because I was like the one that was interacting mostly with on the day-to-day basis with everybody that came to the site. It was very much like it gave me a lot of energy, it gave me a lot of enthusiasm for what we were doing. And because back at that time, we were completely broke. We had absolutely no money. We were like literally like having our water cut out, and then our electricity cut out the next month. I mean, just really like just living on pennies. And there wasn't much reason to celebrate. There wasn't like, but these people loving what I was putting up there, and I didn't you didn't want to give anything away, right. But I just put enough stuff up there. And also it was just in the subject matter, it was the idea that it's just the Blair Witch just had a really interesting marketing hook. You know what I mean? It was it's a fake documentary. So there's so much material and so many kind of fun things that we did. And so by the time we went to Sundance, we had a mailing list that I would like do this thing called Hacks and News. And I would, over like once a week, I would like kind of just send out a newsletter kind of updating people on what was going on with the movie. And then, and it was fun. The Sundance, and as we sold the movie and, all this stuff was just a really exciting time. But we had like 10,000 people on that list going into Sundance, and this was like early 99.
That's actually pretty fascinating because you were actually crowdsourcing. You were creating a following back in 99 with email lists. Like that's very advanced stuff back then.
Well, it was. I mean, and it was just the only tool we had at our disposal, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we made the most of it. And then what really pushed the marketing to the next level was that Artisan, they were like the perfect movie company to buy Blair Witch. Mm-hmm. Like there was a guy over there named John Hageman in the marketing department, and there was a woman named Amaret Jones, and they really got the movie. They really understood the movie.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Even before, I mean, even better sometimes than we got our own movie. You know what I mean? And they're the ones. If I'm not mistaken, they're the ones that kind of pushed. That kind of said, all right, they told Artisan, like, we have to buy this. We have to get this movie. We have to buy this movie. You know. Mm-hmm. So once we got the deal and we started working with them, they were just, they loved the website. They were like, they pulled it down and they're like, we're going to re-release the website in chunks, as we get closer to the release date. Mm-hmm. And they were like, do you have, we want to do something on Sci-Fi Channel. We have a slot that we could do like an hour show. And we were like, well, let's do a documentary about the legend of the Blair Witch. And they were like, hell yeah, let's do that. So they gave us money to do that. And, we did that as we delivered the movie,
That's crazy.
So, and then they were like, well, we're going to do a book, based on like a detective, the journals of a detective that looked into the case. And we were like, yeah. And, we collaborated with this writer named D.A. Stern on that, did this book called The Blair Witch Dossier, which is still one of my favorite kind of Blair Witch related pieces of media. Mm-hmm. And they hooked us up with Oni Press, and they did, comic books, and, and so they were very, very like into the idea of like, putting, marketing not in a direct way, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And then, obviously, and then the trailers, like, we realized that they really knew the movie when they started sending us the trailers, and we were like, yeah, that's exactly that's exactly the way it needs to be done, Mm-hmm. So it was just it was the perfect kind of combination of filmmakers that knew enough of about what they had created to help mm-hmm. to be a part of it, and a studio that was willing to let the filmmakers and the marketing department, work, hand in hand to release the movie.
It never happens. It never happens.
No, it never, and there's always these, every time you sell a movie, you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to do this and that. And then you're like, they won't return your call after about a week.
Right.
So, so it was Blair Witch created an energy that, it's hard to come, to come up with that energy in especially in film, you know what I mean? Because it's just something, people had never seen anything like this, you know what I mean? And right. I think that they really like love the idea of like trying to put, to push something new out there,
It's in the studios are generally not known for that.
No, I mean, the studios, they are the opposite of that, I mean, you want something that is safe and can reach a maximum audience and easy to understand,
So the movie now gets released. So can you take me through your journey? It's, I know it's a long journey, but from the movie gets released, it blows up beyond anyone's imagination and continues to blow up. How did you what was it like for you as a filmmaker going through that process? Because I mean, that's a dream of all filmmakers. We all want to make a movie that has the success of a Blair Witch Project. All of us. So what was it like? What was it like at the very beginning, opening weekend? You're like, get the hell out of here.
I mean, it was a bunch of get the hell out of here. I mean, and it continues to be a get the hell out of here. I mean, like there's like me talking to you is like there's still people that want to talk about Blair Witch. So I mean, look, man, it was, and Blair Witch has been nothing but a blessing to me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And when we, like every other filmmaker, independent filmmaker, you hope your movie, and this is. I think people that, weren't around at the early days don't realize that Blair Witch was not only like the most, at the time, like the most, the biggest indie film ever, but at that level of like somebody making a movie for like $50,000, mm-hmm. there had never been anything close to it, man. I mean, you have Clerks, El Mariachi, sure. Yeah. Brothers McMullen, like these really micro budget movies. Maybe, She's Gotta Have It is sure. micro budget. Sure. None of those movies had even, broken. I mean, I think El Mariachi did 3 million or sure. 4 million. Right. I mean, that was, for us, that was the dream. Holy shit, if we could have El Mariachi or a Clerks, if we could have our movie in the theaters, Right. So once, we saw that, artists, once we realized, we saw we got into Sundance. I mean, that was the first kind of like, okay, something cool is happening, Mm-hmm. And then once, all our shows were sold out immediately, and we got into our first show, the movie sells out, and, or sells like that night, like that morning, we made the deal with Artisan, and after just one showing, and then, the buzz around Sundance, was just, it seemed like it was everywhere. And, mm-hmm. and then, we come home and we're still broke, because we don't, right. People, you don't get the money until you deliver the movie, which is many months down the road.
Sure.
So we're still broke, and they're still, cutting our electricity and stuff off. But now there's a goal. Oh, if we do these things, we get, our advance.
Right.
And then, like I said, their Artisan starts talking about marketing, and they offer us this thing of like, can you do a this
mm-hmm.
program
some money
for sci-fi? And we'll give you this much money. We also want to, redo the ending. We want to think about maybe, making a new ending. So we were like, yeah, as long as you pay us, we'll go down and reshoot some endings, whatever. And then, people started coming, just people that we'd gone to film school with, and, were calling us and saying, "Hey, your movie's like, you can understand your movie's tracking like up there with all the Hollywood movies. Like that's never happens to an indie movie. Like, something weird is happening." And then, so you get, we started getting all these kind of clues that, that this thing was going to be, a little bigger than, than we thought. But at the same time, you're like, wow, this is great, And then, but then once, after that first, that first weekend, or the first week we opened in the Angelica, and, mm-hmm. We're like, the movie's like sold out for like a week in advance.
Right.
And you see the lines around the block, just, going in to get some good seats. And then it opens up, and it has this, crazy per screen average. And then it, just all this stuff. And then our Artisan told us that somebody from Rennie Harlin's movie, because we remember Rennie Harlin's movie,
Deep Blue Sea. That's Shark. Yeah, the Shark movie with Samuel L. And LL Cool J.
And that was like that was the big kind of action horror shark thriller that was coming out. And one of the guys from Artisan told us that the studio, I don't know what studio it was, called Artisan and said, "Hey, you guys know that you're going to release your movie on the same day as our movie? Like, you're going to get squashed. Like, do you understand what you're doing?" And Artisan's like, "We understand what we're doing." Yeah. So once the movie comes out and, makes like, 26 or something, 27, That's 28 insane. $28 million.
That's insane.
And then the next weekend it makes, almost the same. And, it's insane, man. It's crazy. And then the week, like the week previous, or one of those weeks, I'm not sure exactly when it came out, but, Dan and I are on the cover of Time magazine. Like we go to you go to the, you go to your grocery store,
And
you're on the freaking, you're on all the damn, registers, man. I mean, and it looks like one of those things that you do at, and at the beach, how you
right.
crop. I used to do fake.
Yeah, like fake that, like yeah.
It still looks that way.
Yeah, like
it looks so
fake.
Yeah, it looks so fake. And then and then it's just Saturday Night Live parodies you, and then
everybody parodies you. Jesus,
yeah, Chris Rock, on the MTV Music Awards, he did like the whole Blair Witch thing, and,
right.
It's just surreal, dude. It's just surreal. And like when Dan and I were doing the tour, we were like all over the United States and then up in Canada. We were like, dude, this is never gonna happen. We gotta enjoy this. And I remember even talking about it.
That's great that you actually you had that sight
absolutely, man, because it was just so out of control, man.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Like we were like, all of a sudden we were like hanging out with, we were at the Independent Spirit Awards, and we were seeing Quentin Tarantino and David Lynch, and
sure,
what I'm saying, the Weinsteins are there, and we go to Cannes, and we meet Ben Affleck, and Darren Aronofsky and I sit down and chat, and you know what I'm saying, like you're in this other world, and you're the whole time you're like, I don't, and even now I still feel like there's, I really loved going through the whole Blair Witch thing, and it's like I said, it's nothing but a blessing. But like, I don't know if I could, like I've often thought about like, can I do the A-list director thing where the amount of work and the amount of press and all that stuff. Like to me, it's like, I don't know, I like, it was pleasurable because it was something that I always thought that, okay, this is not going to be the way it is. Right. This is a special moment.
It's a one-off.
It's a one-off, and then I can go and do my, whatever the hell I can find, my little corner of the film world, hopefully after this. Mm-hmm. But so it was just this these crazy events that just kept happening, meeting Roger Ebert.
Oh, I met him. He reviewed one of my films, and he was such an amazing soul for filmmakers. Man. He was so awesome.
Like still, like, even after all those years, like he still was like a super film geek,
yes.
Super, and I grew up, watching him and Gene Siskel,
Of course. He's from our generation, no question.
Yeah, man. And so to meet him was crazy, and so all these things that were just
surreal. It's just surreal is the best way to.
And it was like a dream that I had never dared really dream about. Like I definitely dreamed about being a filmmaker and having a little bit of a success and this and that, but it was a dream that I didn't even know really existed. You know what I mean? And it was just one of these things that, caught everybody by surprise, and, including us.
So so you go through this insanely out of body experience. It's insane. It's insane. The stories. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is, you're talking about the press and the world coming at you guys left. I mean, I can only imagine what kind of, everybody wants to jump on your bandwagon. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants to dissect who did what on the movie, all this kind of crazy stuff. Can you talk a little bit about how Hollywood themselves treated you? Like, what was because I want the listeners to kind of understand what happens when you get thrown into this kind of machine. And what the agents were saying, what the studio, I'm sure you did the water bottle tour 15 times over. You met every studio exec, you met every big producer, you met every big actor. What was that part, the behind the scenes part, not the stuff in the front of the camera, but the back corners of Hollywood? How did that work?
It was fine. I mean, there was definitely, very much. I mean, for us, it was a special kind of. My agents called it the victory lap.
Right.
And it was very much a different kind of victory lap because people didn't know what we had done. They didn't understand
Yeah.
what we had done, and for good reason. And they also had no idea if we could write and direct a normal film. Like there was very much like, okay, did you guys have a script? Do you guys know what a script looks like? And
right.
so there was definitely some people that I just, there was a lot of bad attitudes. People like just kind of
haters,
or people who just, there was a lot of people who just kind of wanted to see that Dan and I maybe didn't float on, like that we were just regular guys who happened to have made this crazy experimental movie that somehow made, this much money. You know what I mean? Because there's a level of like, what the hell who is this guy?
Yeah. The anomaly factor.
Yeah, the anomaly, and I think there's a little bit of like a freak show. Like, oh, I want to stand next to the Blair Witch guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there still is that, but now for me, it's like very much like, I love it. I mean, I just love the idea that people are still kind of excited that I made, about this movie that I made, 20 years ago.
Right.
And I understand that because, if especially on the filmmaking side, because I meet a lot of people who were inspired by the movie, just the idea of like, shit, anybody can do this.
Right.
So when they meet me, they're like, oh man, I love to hear those stories of like, oh my God, man, everybody has a Blair Witch story and I love to hear them, but Hollywood was, it's a tough thing, man, because for me and Dan, and I guess I can only speak about me, but I think Dan and I were both going through the same thing. It was the idea of like, okay, we made this movie, but we don't, we have ideas for other movies, but this is not going to happen again. Like we can't do another Blair Witch, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's not, this is not going to happen, and also Dan and I were not, we never considered ourselves horror filmmakers. Like we didn't have, I think a lot of filmmakers that go into the horror genre have been trying to make horror movies their whole lives and have a whole backlog of horror ideas and all. And Dan and I just didn't have that. I mean, Dan had a really good thriller kind of horror idea, but and otherwise, we weren't horror filmmakers. Like we weren't like guys who had like 10 scripts ready to go. So the time after Blair Witch, we didn't have another horror script, and actually Dan and I wanted to make a comedy. So you can imagine the talks that our agents had with us about
the Blair Witch guys making a comedy.
Yeah, like that was our state of mind. And the thing about it is that, and looking back on it, I'm like, that was kind of a dumb thing to do, but you have to understand is that we were, Blair Witch was bringing in a lot of money to us. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And a lot of, as most of the time, when filmmakers, get their first film sold. I mean, even like I was talking to Darren Aronofsky after at Cannes, he had just done Pi with Artisan, and the movie had made some money, but he still owed them money. Like he was still broke. Like he, it was just so. That was a very successful independent film, so we were in a very special situation where we had made our first independent film, our first, theatrically released independent film, and we had made a ton of money. So we didn't have to make another movie, and we didn't have to make, and most importantly, we didn't have to make the movie that we didn't want to make.
Right.
And so Hollywood, our agents send us like, pretty much every horror script that has been in development, that had been in development in the previous 3 or 4 years, they sent to us, and we read films that were about to get, that were about to go into production, but needed directors. Like we got offered, that Exorcist prequel with a movie that had to be remade. It had to be made twice. And still didn't fix all the problems it had.
Right.
And we read the script and we were like, look, we are, without The Exorcist, there wouldn't be a Blair Witch. I mean, it's both Dan and our favorite horror movie of all time.
Of course. And
we would love nothing more than to jump into the Exorcist world. But this script, we'd have to rewrite the script. And they were like, no, we're already on location. We start shooting in like a month and a half. So we were like, how in the world are we going to show up to a set and be able to do anything that we want to do
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah, we would have gotten paid a ton of money.
Yeah.
But you know, it was obvious that all they wanted was like from the creators of the Blair Witch Project on top of the poster, you know? So you know, so that's kind of, you know, and also we stayed in Orlando for a while. You know, we didn't immediately move to LA and kind of start process of kind of becoming, you know, becoming a member of the club. You know what I mean?
Because it was Hollywood East. I mean, to your defense.
Yeah. Oh, but look, man, I mean, we were waiting for Spielberg to come back. He made some promises to us, man. No, but you know, so that was the situation, man, and it, you know, you know, we had like a lot of really great opportunities, but nothing. I feel that like, you know, we had like as far as I'm concerned, and I know Dan is the same way. It's like we had always made films from our hearts, you know, like we had poured everything into it. And
we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Getting accustomed to like not doing that on every job is something that it took me a while to learn.
Right.
That, you know, you can still do really good work and still do your best work, but you don't dedicate the love that you dedicate to something, you know, to a film that you write and direct and, you know, finance and all, you know, do all the work for, you know?
Right.
And, you know, and also, man, you know, I was 30 years old and
God,
Dan was, I guess, you know, the mid 30s and, we were all, you know, there was a certain, you know, arrogance as far as like, you know, we're invincible and we're going to be able to make movies for the rest of our lives, you know?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what was the effect on you as a person with this kind of success and fame? Because it never ends well. When this kind of worldwide success, fame, you're the best, you're awesome. This never ends well, and I'm surprised that you're still alive.
I'm still alive, barely.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, how did it hit you?
Absolutely, dude. I mean, yeah. I mean, I often tell people like if you know, because when you know the Blair Witch was made by these, you know, 5 guys mostly. You know, these 5. There's, you know, really important guys on the edges of that did a lot of important work. But Haxon, the company that made Blair Witch, was 5 guys who kind of like lived and, you know, breathed and ate Blair Witch for a couple of years, you know? And we just, if it hadn't been all 5 of us, I think there was a chance, like if it had been just one of us, you know, like this, oh my God, this writer-director has come out of nowhere and made this Blair Witch and the whatever, there was definitely, you know, things could have gone badly, really badly, really fast. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that, you know, even though we made a lot of mistakes and, you know, we didn't take advantage of some opportunities that, you know, looking back on it, we're like, yeah, we should have maybe done that. You know, at the same time, we all kept each other down. You know what I mean? Like, you know, our motto was like, if you see me getting high, knock me down, you know?
That's great. So you had a support group.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's a support, not really a support group. It was a group that was going to tell you to, you know, to not to, you know, he's going to slap you in the back of the head and tell you to, you know, fuck off if you started acting like an idiot. You know what I mean?
Like what family does, basically.
Exactly. Like knock you down if you, you know, like, yeah, you ain't no Blair Witch director around here, dude, you know?
Take out the garbage.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so that really kept us grounded. And I think, you know, the idea that we tried, you know, as long as possible to make it work, you know, out of Orlando. That's also insane. Yeah, also helped us out. But because man, the thing about it is that when you have, you know, like LA was the only place that I was recognized. Like when I went there, and that's because the only people that knew who I looked were other filmmakers that were trying to, you know, do exactly what I was doing. You know what I mean? So you know, you just meet a lot of people who, you know, and that's just the way LA is, man. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, everybody's like this, and I know that, everybody does the scramble no matter what.
The hustle, baby,
just,
the hustle.
You got to do the hustle, man. It's just at different levels,
Yeah.
But I just got tired of tried to be hustled to all the time. Like every time I went there, I went to a party and.
Oh God, I can only imagine. Oh my God.
It was just too much, man. And so my whole thing was like, I don't mind. I mean, I hate driving around LA, but I think LA, it's a great town. It has a lot of great things to offer. But as a human being, like to me, I was like, man, if I end up in LA, there's going to be some trouble. Like either I'm going to end up like as, like the biggest sleazeball, freaking cocaine snorting, sleazy, ex filmmaker, or things might go, things might go right. But I just felt that there was so much danger of like, just going down the wrong path and really for me, like taking myself too seriously, man. Because I think that's the big. And I'm not saying that you can't take your work, you have to take your work seriously. There's a lot of money on the line. It's a business. But there's a lot of people out there who are just take themselves and their films a little too seriously, man. And it's like, there's at the end of the day, the people working to try to cure AIDS or to try to find a cure for cancer those are the dudes that should be believing their own shit, you know what I mean, because they really are making a difference, you know what I mean,
right.
And I just and I know that film is an art form, and I really do respect. There's so many filmmakers out there, that you got to respect their abilities, but I think that there's a certain point where you're like, dude, it's a movie. This is a movie.
Right.
These are the same thing on the set. Like sometimes people get and I'm like, dude, we're just making an episode of some show, or we're just doing a movie. This
just
is
relax.
this is not going to cost anybody their lives or their freedom, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So so I think that's one of the main reasons that I stayed out of LA, just to kind of I don't know, just keep myself grounded and keep myself keep myself the same person that I've tried to always be in my life,
And the funny thing is that you were back in Orlando waiting for it to become Hollywood East, but little did you know you were Hollywood East. You were the big fish in the small pond, and you're like,
we were like almost pretty much the only fish. I mean, there's we had our offices. I don't know. I guess you were gone by then, but we had our offices at Disney MGM.
Oh yeah.
After we did Blair Witch,
sure.
They gave us like offices, and we were on the tour.
Yes. I worked.
Sometimes we would come out of our thing because tour thing, the tram would go by.
Sure.
Just, walk around, and sometimes we just act like we're doing just stupid. Like, what are you doing out here? Like, just doing. We couldn't believe it. We just did. Listen, and to the left is the offices of the Haxon Films, who just made a movie called The Blair Witch Project. And it was just so funny to be a part of that, man. And then, mostly what we did at Disney was just sneak into the park and ride, rock and roller coaster.
That's all I did, dude. That's all I did when I worked at Disney, man. I knew all the inside. Like, I would go right through where the commissary was, like from the park. So I'd come in through the back, go through the commissary, and I'd bring my family out. I'd just walk them right out. This is this is before 2000. This is before 9/11.
It was before 9/11. Yeah.
You could just
it was definitely. I mean, part of being on the back lot was the fact you could go and go into the park. Man.
Oh yeah,
it was really exciting.
So you've done a lot. You've been doing a lot of television directing in recent years. What is the big difference between directing episodic television versus doing feature films for the audience?
The episodic first of all, it's shorter. I mean, coming from an indie world where you're pregnant and then you give birth and you make this, you watch this kid of yours grow up, literally years you're making, an independent film. TV is, you're basically work for 3 weeks and then you do edit notes and then you're done, It's a quickie. It's a quickie, man. And so you have to kind of go in with your, you already, running, your feet already moving, because, then the whole thing is just to get on that train and not slow it down. You know what I mean? The train of the season has already been moving. You know, like I did the first Supernatural episode I did, I think was like number 238. So I was like, all right, so they've done pretty well without me. So it's not like, and that's a different thing. Like, that's a different, like as a feature director, the feature director is like, especially indie, like the director is like the chief, like the freaking creative, like, because that's the way it is. There has to be one or two people that are like, because, you just have to be that. You got to be quick and you got to be, got to move. And in television, like I was saying, the train's already been moving. You just get on and you lead, you drive the train for a little while, and then you get off and let the other guy drive. And the big thing is like to learn how it runs, to learn what kind of show it is, try to get as much information. I mean, watch as many of the episodes as you can if you haven't watched the show. For Supernatural, it was like I just try to watch as many as, like, I watched the whole first season, and then I watched like I just looked for like the most important shows of all the seasons, and I try to catch up as much as possible, but there's no way you're going to be able to see that many episodes.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
But you get in there and you just try, you figure out where, what the crew needs. Sometimes the actors need more attention. Sometimes the DP is, automatic. You know how it is. Sometimes they give you, sometimes the DP, I mean, and that's the thing about episodic is that really, if it really came to it, you as a director could just sit there and let, the crew knows what they're doing. The actors know their characters. The DP knows how they've been shooting this show for years now or whatever. So you really can sit back and just watch them work. And so you have to figure out like how much sitting back do I need to do, because there's different shows. Some shows are very much like we need shot sheets and they're very much director dependent, and other shows are more just kind of, definitely supervise and try to, bring your vision and your blocking and all that stuff. But the show already has a look and is already fully cast. So it's not like you're going to be able to come in there and do anything dramatic.
Traffic cop. You're a traffic cop.
Yeah, basically. But I love it, man. I mean, I really do. Like I didn't know how, if I was going to like it, the idea of like not being in control and not being, the one that has to have all the answers all the time. But I really enjoy it. I really love, meeting the crew, and then like for me, I don't know how you feel, but like the crew is the crew. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I haven't worked extensively in LA, but even, from when I worked in LA, like the crews are just, if you treat them with respect,
oh yeah,
they're going to love you, man, because they are really doing the hard work. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Those crews work their asses off. So if you go in and you show that you're respectful to their time, where you're not making them sit around, or you're not making them have a late day for no freaking reason, or, you have a plan and you're trying to make everything, you're trying to make decisions as quickly as possible. They appreciate that. And, so I get along really well with the crews, and so far, man, knock on wood, every show I've done, I've been invited back to. So
that's a big sign right there.
It's a big, so hopefully it seems like I'm doing something right. But for me, like right now, for me and my partner, Greg, it's, we're our big thing is to get our own TV show going.
Yeah. And now there's 500 of them on streaming.
There's so many, and also, and the horror genre is really hot right now on television. So we just pitched the show a couple of weeks ago, and we're getting another one ready. We're going to be getting another one ready like next month, and we're just going to keep doing it. We almost had a show at Stars last year that unfortunately was supposed to shoot in Cuba.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
It would have been great. And then Castro died, and then Trump was elected, and, things have
changed.
Gotten a little complicated now as far as shooting in Cuba. Right. But we were working with Alejandro Brujes, who's another Cuban.
Sure.
Another director. And we were in love with the show. Stars was in love with the show. But so we're determined to kind of get our own show going and really dive into that, you know what I mean? Because and still, keep a a toe or whatever in the indie world. I have, 3 or 4 movies that are, that are in various places in development, being written or about to be pitched, so I'm always doing, going to try to keep doing features because I really do love making films, but I do love television, and it really does make you a much better director, man. Just,
Just the speed.
You just exercises those muscles of like, get in there, block it, rehearse, and then, figure out where you're going to shoot it from and just start. You know what I mean?
And go, you're not going to sit there for weeks and weeks and weeks. You got to go quick.
It's made me much faster, and I look forward to it every time, man.
So, what makes a great scary movie, man?
That's a great question. I mean, to me, it's always about character to a certain extent. I mean, obviously, it always helps to have good characters, but for me, it's like, show me, you got to show me something new, you know what I mean? And that new can, cause it really is, horror films, the really kind of, the ones that really have made a mark, really kind of do advanced things. Like they always bring in new techniques and because really a horror movie is just, and every movie is basically a trick. You're tricking the audience into believing that this is real.
Right.
And horror movies are, and comedies, you have to, make people laugh, which is a challenge. But in movies, I think it's the big, and horror movies is the biggest challenge because you have to scare people. And once people are scared have been scared in one way, that wears out the more you use it.
Right.
I'm saying like the cat jumping out at the camera worked, the first couple of times it was used, but now you have to, even the way you formulate your jump scares, you have to come up with new stuff,
Right.
So for me, it's about, a good horror film takes me makes me feel vulnerable in a new way, or creeps me out in a new way, or shows me something that, or lets me hear something or feel something scary that I haven't felt often, or the last horror film I saw didn't make me feel, so. And whether it's camera, movement, or just, the way, the tone,
technique,
technique, lighting, whether it's a really good monster, whether it's a really good jump scare, whether it's really good, mythology, whether it's creepy imagery, sound. There's so many ways to do it, but, it's every time it's a difficult process because you do have to kind of, especially now, like the horror audiences are so savvy that they know every trick, and so you have to kind of stay one step ahead of them. And but for me, man, it's like, if it scares me, I feel that like there's a good chance that it'll scare, at least some other people, so that's kind of I approach my films. But it's not hard to scare me, man. Like I really there's a reason why I never considered myself a horror filmmaker.
Right.
Is because, I don't really enjoy watching horror movies, like effective ones, like I don't like, people, I don't particularly like, seeing people in misery, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So for me, like, learning to be a horror filmmaker, which is really what I've had to do after Blair Witch, has been really a very educational experience. And also it's made me really, look up to the people that do it repeatedly, do it well. And also, man, horror films, as a filmmaker, it's a little dangerous, at least for me, because like you really get into these dark places in your mind that are not really, not really the normal thing that a human being should be, should be thinking about 24 hours a day, is
for months on end.
Or how kids can be, how ways to kill people, or
it's not.
It's not a good place to be, and that's why, I know the idea of making a comedy after Blair Witch is actually very funny,
right?
But for me and Dan, like it was a form of therapy that we really needed after living in this really dark Blair Witch world for 3 years, you know?
God, I can only imagine psychologically what that does to you.
Yeah, man. So, and, so we, for us, it was just like, the attempt to make a comedy was just somewhere to just like go in a completely different direction, release all this, negative energy, and then come back and, back fresh to the horror genre,
So I have a few more questions that I ask all my guests if you still have some time.
Sure.
All right, cool. So, first of all, who are some of your favorite directors and why?
There's so many of them, but
just a couple.
Yeah. Spike Lee, we talked about,
Sure.
like really, just made me angry and then made me love him more than anybody. And then, Spielberg, because just certain magic in Spielberg that nobody else can really capture for some reason. And then Stanley Kubrick,
I'm a huge Kubrick fan.
Everybody loves Kubrick. I mean, you gotta love Kubrick, man.
I mean, The Shining, dude. The Shining just still freaks me out. It's like it gets in your bones, that movie.
Like he had this, he had an ability to like really put something on the celluloid that most other filmmakers couldn't. You know what I mean?
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
There was just something about his films that like, and they are like The Shining and,
Full Metal,
Full Metal Jacket and 2001 and just so many like just kind of and all over the place. He made films about all kinds of different things.
He jumped genres, that's for sure.
Yeah, and and then Scorsese. Like when I discovered Taxi Driver, I was I don't know how many times I watched it, but
oh god, it's such an amazing movie.
It's such a dark and creepy and just weird and like just so cool. Ride. It's like a little ride of a movie. Just crazy, man. But there's so many.
There's hundreds of them. There's so
many great filmmakers, man. Hitchcock, of course, and for me, like composers, I think are like for me, like film music. I was a big fan of film music, also around Star Wars, and I think the power of like the great composers are. I think part of the magic of Spielberg is John Williams for sure.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, those are the 3 or 4 top like my guys that I always go back to.
Now, what advice would you give a filmmaker wanting to start out in the business today?
It depends on what you want to do. Like if you want to,
direct. He wants to be a filmmaker.
If you want to direct, you got to make a movie, man. You got to make a movie. You can. There's so many different ways to do it, but first of all, the big thing is to prove to show not only other people but yourself that you can make a movie, because there's very few people that are going to give you millions of dollars without ever seeing any of your material, any of your work. Just make films as much as possible. Just get even if you're shooting with your iPhone. I mean, I shot a movie on VHS, and then I shot a movie on a high 8 that ended up in the movie theater. So, story. iPhone is like would have been a dream to have in those days. So. And also for me, like it's very important to like if you want to make your mark as like a director, is to like you can be influenced by directors and you can be like obviously inspired by certain movies, but you really got, especially your early work, you've really got to try to find your own voice. Like even if it's and write about and shoot films about things that that you've experienced, or that you can, that you are that make you, that are unique to you. You know what I mean? Like I see, and even even me early on, it's just hard to not want to do some Steven Spielberg stuff. You know what I mean? Like or people that you admire, or like James Bond. Like I love James Bond movies for the idea of like, oh man, I'd love to make do like a little James Bond movie. But like for me, it's like, you got to find something that is going to give you, is going to set you apart from, everybody else. And now, like, when I was younger, the problem was just getting the equipment to make the film was the stumbling, was the gatekeeper, as we talked about earlier. Now the gatekeeper is, it's easy to make a movie. I mean, relatively easy to make a movie. The equipment is everywhere. You can edit on your computer, things that, we never had as when we were younger. But the idea is now you have to break through. You have to, there's thousands of these low budget features being made every year. So you've got to like break through not only above them, but you've got to break through into the area where professional filmmakers are working. So the more unique you are, even if it's a really small story, it'll go a lot longer, a lot more, give you a lot more, juice to do something, unique, even if it's small. And then if you have, you see these stories of these young guys that have made these like little special effects movies, and then they get these huge these huge movies in Hollywood. I mean, that's another way to do it. It really, there's very, very few of those examples out there, but there's some people who have made these really incredible short films,
but they're rare. They are rare.
They're super rare. So, and even those films, like you have to, there's a certain level of competence that you have to show, or else
District 9, District 9 is a good example of that.
Or even the guy who did Colin Trevorrow, right? He did like a short kind of, So I think that like I said, there's many ways of doing it. If you're a writer, write a script. There's still, even though the spec market is very limited, there's still people, at least people will, if it's a good script, people will read it, and people will, know. So there's many ways to do it, but, you just got to go out there and do it. I meet a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers, all my life, who are always, they're like, oh, I want to do this feature, but I'm trying to get, an actor. I'm trying to get John Cusack. I'm trying to get, and I'm like, dude, you're not going to get John Cusack.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you might, I could tell you right now, you might also win the lottery too. You know what I mean? You never know, but once you go down that road that everybody else is going down, including filmmakers that with a much better track record than you, your odds are totally, not in your favor. So the idea is like, just go out and do it yourself and just try to, try to come up with something that you haven't seen before, or do it in a way that you haven't seen before. I mean, it's not about like an original story, because, as long as it's well done and it's like coming at it from a different point of view, I think that's what people want to see, man.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Jeez.
I know it's deep. It's deep.
That's a deep one. I mean, I guess it's, and really I learned it a lot. I learned it, the big thing on Blair Witch, as far as like, filmmaking was concerned, is the idea that like, there's this very kind of, dark, for most people it's dark. Other people, they love it. But the idea that like, film, like you were talking about, like the idea of like the superstar director, what I mean? Like that's something that really, that was something that like I really loved the idea of that. And it still creeps in sometimes, you just want to be this, your ego kind of wants this, adulation, you know what I mean? And that leads to, as early in my career, is the idea that you have to control everything, that you have to, write the movie and direct it and edit it and light it. And, better than everybody. But Blair Witch especially taught me that, it's the ultimate collaborative, art form, and you really have to, you have to choose your people carefully, and not only your actors, but the people, who are on your crew. And the whole idea is releasing this this need to control everything and letting your crew and your actors make a better movie with you, or make a better TV show along with you instead of for you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in life, I think it's the same way. Like the idea that, like, you can't control. The only person you can control is yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think as a filmmaker, like, the idea of, like, a lot of times, like, you have an idea and then somebody else comes in. It could be, your partner, your writing partner, your directing partner, or it come from a PA.
Mm-hmm.
But the ability to recognize a better idea and not have your ego, destroy it, or, like, not give it any chance to, like, grow. That's, to me, was like the biggest lesson that I've learned, is the idea of, like, in filmmaking is, it is about your vision, and it's about, putting ideas, whatever, but it's also like, if you put your film and your project will be much better if you bring talented people around you and you treat them with respect and you treat them like true partners,
right?
Whether it's an actor or anybody else, you know what I mean? And, and obviously there's times for collaboration and there's times for not, for collaboration,
Sure.
Especially on the set, but the idea that, like, a good idea can come from anybody, and not to feel this, like, oh, it didn't come from me, so I'm not going to use it. You know what I mean?
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Like, that's right. To me, like, it's still something that I still, fight with, I still battle with that, you know what I mean? But so, putting the work above, the end product above any kind of, demand,
ego, right?
Yeah, any kind of demand your ego, wants. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so
right.
For me, that's a big thing for me.
And when the last question, and it's arguably the hardest one, 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Wow. Well, Do the Right Thing. We already discussed that. Blade Runner.
Oh, such an amazing film! Can't wait for that. I'm looking forward to the sequel. How about you?
Man. I mean, I mean, the trailer honestly is not looking great to me.
Okay,
but I'm gonna be there. Probably
regardless.
First week.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be better than the trailer. I hope it is.
It's hard. It's hard to come back. It's hard to make a sequel to a film like that.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, Blade Runner was just this. And just like. And again, like Ridley Scott's another one of my favorite filmmakers. But it's just like the magic he caught, and the idea that, like, they let him do that. I guess because Harrison Ford was like, I guess I mean, I don't know. It was right after Raiders, but I guess Raiders had. I don't know how successful Raiders was while they were shooting Blade Runner.
It was Star Wars and Raiders both.
Yeah, but just the idea that they let him make that movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just such a unique, and I love the Vangelis score.
Oh, it's so amazing!
The just so many cool things about it. And then the third one, let's come up with something out of the ordinary, like Notting Hill.
I do love Notting Hill. I watched it the other day with my wife.
Is my favorite, like, romantic comedy, like, because it's like the ultimate, like, dream, like a normal guy hooking up with a beautiful movie star, and it's just the whole British thing, and it's a really fun movie, man. Yeah,
that and Love Actually are 2 of my favorites. Same director.
Love Actually is like, it still has this. I think Notting Hill is like a little less, on the cheeseball side, but Love Actually is like definitely like a yearly thing for me and my wife.
Christmas time, you got to watch it.
Yeah, it's just one of those films, man.
Man, listen, Eduardo, man, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to the tribe and share your journey, your experience, and your knowledge with us, man. I truly appreciate you taking up all this time, and I've taken up more time than I expected to, but thank you so much for being so generous.
Man, I appreciate being on and the good discussion, man. Thank you.
For a generation of filmmakers, Eduardo and the Blair Witch Project is the pinnacle of independent horror movies. I know that so many filmmakers and horror filmmakers from that time were inspired by what he and his partner did with the Blair Witch Project, and really launched so many careers. I mean, without a Blair Witch Project, there is no Paranormal Activity. There are no other movies like that. Every found footage movie you've ever seen owes everything to the Blair Witch Project. So it is really an honor to have Eduardo on the show. And Eduardo, thank you again so much for your time, energy, and candor throughout this interview. So thank you so much. And I hope you guys, the tribe listening, get a little bit of inspiration about what two young filmmakers in Central Florida with no Hollywood connections got together and threw together this amazing little film that took the world by storm. Thinking outside of the box really helped these guys out, because if they were going to try to shoot this like a traditional film, it would have never been made. It couldn't have been finished, and it wouldn't have had the impact that it did. This is the way they combined everything: the marketing, the found footage, the actors, the writing, the location, the story, everything, all was a perfect storm for this movie. So I'll put a link on the show notes for everything dealing with Eduardo, with Blair Witch, so you can take a look at it. And of course, the show notes are at indiefilmhustle.com/191. And guys, this week is Stranger Things week, because I am a huge fan of Stranger Things. So I got, I think, 3 articles every day or every other day coming out on Stranger Things, on how they tell stories, how they use the camera, all sorts of good stuff. So definitely keep an eye out for it at indiefilmhustle.com. Or if you've signed up for our newsletter, you'll get a wrap-up of all the week's events in your newsletter. And if you guys have not gone over to the Indie Film Hustle YouTube page yet, please do so. We got a lot of great new content coming out on the YouTube channel. We got a new episode of the Director Series with Christopher Nolan. We're going into his next movie, Insomnia, and at least 3 shows a week. This week's going to be 4 or 5 episodes of stuff coming out every day. So I'm really pumping a lot of content out through YouTube, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely check it out, indiefilmhustle.com/YouTube. And as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.